Welcome to CrossFacts, people. For today we are going to talk about the 12 important Bible figures that are not Jewish. The Bible is a boatload of Jewish figures, which is understandable since God chose the Jewish nation for Christ to be born in order to save the world. However, there are several Gentiles or non-Jewish people who are mentioned in the Bible. For this video, we are going to only focus on the Gentiles from both the Old and the New Testament, who carried out important tasks for the Jewish nation or the world. This list is in no particular order since it's hard to rate their contribution. We'll use the idea as Abraham being the first Jew as reference for this video. Also, please like, share and subscribe. Now let's begin. Number 1. Noah. Noah was born 10 generations after Adam. He is not a Jew because Judaism didn't even exist by then. Besides, everyone's family tree traces back to Noah. He is the only reason we are alive today. Because of rising evil in the world, God decided to flood the whole earth. According to Genesis chapter 6 verse 9, Noah was a righteous man and blameless in his generation. He and his family were the only people that did not die in the global flood that took place in Genesis chapter 7. After the flood, God created a rainbow, promising Noah that he won't destroy the world with water again. Since then, the rainbow became a sign of that promise. Number 2. The centurion. The centurion story is mentioned in Luke chapter 7. A centurion is basically a commander of about 100 Roman soldiers. When one of his servants got sick, the centurion sent Jewish elders to Jesus so he could heal the centurion's servant. The centurion further instructed Jesus to simply declare his servant healed. Jesus was amazed by his faith due to the fact that Jesus did not even meet him or his servant. Jesus considered his faith greater than any other in Israel. For the Son of God to be amazed of this man's level of faith really says something. The Roman official's account encourages us to have faith to this day. Number 3. Ruth. A Moabite, Ruth was the daughter-in-law of Naomi. The Moabites were closely related to the Hebrews. They originated from Moab, who has a complicated family tree. He was the result of his mother sleeping with her father, Lot. So Moab's dad is both his grandfather and father, and his mother is both his sister and mom. Now that's a complicated family tree. His father, Lot, is Abraham's nephew, but I digress. Naomi lost her husband and 2 sons. Grieved, she told her daughters-in-law Ruth and Orpah to go to their quote-unquote mother's house. Fun fact. Orpah was Oprah Winfrey's name. It's pronounced Oprah because people did not know how to say it. Anyways, Orpah listened to Naomi, but Ruth insisted to go with her mother-in-law to Israel. Because of her insistence and kindness, Ruth married for the second time to a man named Boaz. She ultimately became the great-grandmother of David and an ancestor of Christ. Number 4. Abraham's servant. This servant story takes place in Genesis chapter 24. Although there is no clear evidence, Jewish tradition considers this servant to be Eliezer, who is mentioned in Genesis chapter 15 verse 2. Whether he is Eliezer or not, it is safe to say that he is not a Jew because of how he talks to and about God. If it wasn't for him, Isaac would not have married Rebekah, and therefore Jacob, Esau, or the 12 tribes of Israel will not have existed. In Genesis chapter 24, Abraham instructed this servant to find Isaac a wife, and throughout the chapter, we see how he was faithful and determined to carry out his task. His story teaches us to be loyal and responsible when carrying out a task. Number 5. Luke. Luke was the only biblical author whom we know as a fact was a non-Jew or Gentile. He did not just write 1, but 2 books in the Bible, Luke and Acts. Luke was a Greek physician who was a friend and follower of Paul. Unlike Matthew and John, who wrote Matthew and John, he does not mention himself in either of the books, but Paul mentions him in Colossians chapter 4 verse 11. Without him, we would not have the books of Luke and Acts. For the Gospel of Luke, we would have missed unique aspects of Jesus' teachings, like the parables of the 2 debtors and the parable of the lost coin. Some of Jesus' life as an infant and at the age of 12 would have been lost too. For Acts would have missed how the apostles carried on the mission of Christ and how people like Paul became and lived as a follower of Christ. If you want to know more about Luke, watch the Paul the Apostle movie starring Jim Caviezel as Luke. Number 6. Melchizedek. Melchizedek was a Canaanite priest and king of Salem, later renamed Jerusalem. He was first mentioned in Genesis chapter 14 verse 18. His name means king of righteousness. We do not really know much about him, but he's the first person to name God as El Elyon, meaning God Most High in the Bible. The first occurrence of tithing involved him and Abraham. Abraham gave 1/10 of his spoils of war to Melchizedek, which included properties. Did you know that tithing is a controversial topic for Christians? After this video, head on to the top 12 controversial Bible topics to watch it. In any case, Hebrews chapter 7 draws some similarities between Melchizedek and Jesus. Number 7. Job. The book of Job is very strange to say the least. It is not clear who the author is, when it took place, or what the Leviathan is. Long story short, it goes like this. Job was a righteous man, but one day Satan, or the devil, appears to God in heaven. God boasts to the devil about Job. Ultimately, Satan challenges God that if he, Satan, torments Job, then Job will curse God. God agrees to the challenge with the exception that the devil shouldn't kill Job. A moment later, Job gets afflicted from the devil from every area of his life. Job remains faithful and does not curse God. After some time, God blesses Job with more than he had before. Job's suffering teaches us a lot of lessons, namely that sometimes bad things happen to good people. We shouldn't judge people based on what happens to them, and staying faithful to God even when not having all the answers. Although the book of Job caused many people to question God, Job's story encouraged many people going through a similar situation. Number 8. Cornelius. Cornelius was a Roman commander. He was also a centurion. In Acts chapter 10, while Cornelius was fasting and praying, God spoke to him saying that he should meet Peter. So Cornelius sent 2 of his servants and a guard to fetch Peter. Before they could reach Peter's house, God spoke to Peter saying that he should go with the servants whom Cornelius had sent. Peter agrees to go with them to Caesarea to meet Cornelius. When they met, Peter shared the gospel to Cornelius. As Peter was speaking, Cornelius and his household felt the Holy Spirit. This became a sign to Peter, Cornelius, and everyone else that God opened the door of the gospel to the world, that he did not show any favoritism based on ethnic background. Cornelius and the others spoke in tongues and were baptized. This is the second event where people felt the Holy Spirit and spoke in tongues. Pentecost was the first time back in Acts chapter 2. Number 9. Rahab. Not only was Rahab a Gentile, she was a prostitute as well. This obviously, to a Jew of that era and Christians now, would be the last person God would choose, but God does exactly so. In the book of Joshua, we see how Joshua, the leader of the Israelites, sent 2 of his men to infiltrate and spy the city of Jericho. They end up getting help from an unlikely source known as Rahab the prostitute. She decides to help them in exchange for her and her family's safety when the Israelites destroy the city. She was essential in the destruction of Jericho and ultimately possessing the promised land. Like Ruth, Rahab became one of the 4 women to be part of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Number 10. Philemon. Meaning affectionate in Greek, Philemon is one of the early Christians and a good friend of Paul. Philemon was a slave owner who was probably from Colossae, Asia Minor, which is located in present-day Turkey. He helped Paul and other Christians further the gospel. He even set up a church in his house so Christians could worship God. Yes, Philemon was a slave owner, but it's probably not what you think. Slavery that the Israelites practiced was indentured servitude, kind of like working for someone to pay off a debt. The debtor is freed after the debt is paid. The Bible even forbids the ill treatment of slaves. It is fair to say that Philemon was not a Jew, thus did not practice the same type of slavery. But he was still a Christian and still had to obey Christian commandments. Besides, Paul, who was a Jewish Christian, would not have been friends with someone who would treat slaves cruelly. Anyways, Onesimus ran away from Philemon, but Paul sent him back to his owner. Paul urged Philemon to forgive Onesimus and not forget that he is a Christian. The letters that Paul wrote to Philemon was compiled to make the book of Philemon. Number 11. Jethro. Jethro, or Ruel, was a Midianite priest. He was the father-in-law of Moses. The Midianites were probably the descendants of Abraham and his second wife Keturah. Jethro helped Moses make a living after he ran away from Egypt for killing an Egyptian. Moses entrusted his children and his wife to Jethro while he went to Egypt to set the Israelites free. In Exodus chapter 18, Jethro helped Moses delegate his responsibilities after seeing Moses being overwhelmed as a judge. Moses was basically listening to people's cases and coming up with solutions. The Israelites were about 3 million, so you could imagine the workload Moses had as a judge. In any case, Moses listened to his father-in-law. He chose some men to be judges. As a result, Moses only dealt with problems that were too hard or complex for the appointed judges to solve. And finally, number 12, Puah and Shiphrah. According to Exodus chapter 1, the Pharaoh of Egypt was worried of the increasing Hebrew population in Egypt. He wanted to decrease their population so that the Egyptians would not be overthrown in case the Hebrews decide to do so. He decided to order the midwives Puah and Shiphrah to kill the Hebrew baby boys. The midwives decided not to obey Pharaoh's order because they feared God. When Pharaoh asked them why they didn't do as he ordered, they lied to him, saying Hebrew women give birth fast. Surprisingly, Pharaoh let them live and God blessed the women with houses or households for defying Pharaoh. The Jewish text is not clear whether Puah and Shiphrah were Hebrews or not. The text means one of two things. One, they were Hebrew midwives, or two, they were midwives of the Hebrews. With the help of the Rational Bible by Dennis Prager, we believe that it is the latter, since Pharaoh would not entrust Hebrew midwives to do his evil deeds. He would not have been surprised when they did not obey him, and the excuse Shiphrah and Puah gave about the Hebrew women made it seem like they were not Hebrews themselves. The midwives showed great courage in doing what was right, even in the face of certain death. Pharaoh could have most likely killed the women if he did not believe them. Although they were involved in only a few verses, Shiphrah and Puah's story continues to teach us to obey God, not men, even if we might get killed. There you have it, people, the 12 important Bible figures that are not Jewish. As entertaining and knowledgeable this video is, it does little good if you have not given your life to Christ. If you are willing, please check the link in the description. What this list tells us is that God can use anyone who is willing. He can use you too. You do not have to be smart, rich, or of a certain race or color to do what He wants you to do. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to get more videos. Thank you so much for watching. From me and the CrossFacts crew, God bless.